Morning, everyone. Welcome back to the LOOPCast. Today, joined by Tom McCluskey and Erica. And today's show is brought to you by Real Estate for Life. If you want to talk to a faith-based agent you can trust, check out realestateforlife.org. Happy Monday to everyone. You might notice someone is missing. And Josh, if you guys could say a quick prayer for him, he is enjoying the spoils of rural living. They currently don't have power in his area of Michigan. So
his entire county, actually. They had the ice storm that came from Canada or something.
Was Canada mad about the tariffs?
I guess so. Like they sent the ice storm down. I don't know. But the entire county of northern Michigan, Petoskey there, does not have power. So pray for him.
Yeah. But we have tinfoil Tom McCluskey, DC correspondent. Tom, thank you for last minute joining. We always love having you here. Thank you for taking the time.
I'm a very poor substitute and certainly will be praying for Josh as we normally should. Because I mean, look at
just in general. Yeah. As we should. Erica, what do we have going on for today's show?
Well, today is a big birthday, and Josh is missing. The 10th anniversary of The Loop is today. So all of you who know and love The Loop, our daily newsletter with all the news that's fit to print, plus Catholic 101s, beauty, it's all there. It turns 10 today. And of course, we would love to have Josh Mercer here to celebrate. And we hope you will be with us for a belated birthday on Wednesday. But happy anniversary to The Loop. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Go get subscribed to The Loop.
It's time.
It is time. And we also have massive news nationally. So DOGE is rebranding. They are not boys in the basement anymore. Now they are coming out as guys, billionaires, and they've gone on the offensive. We're going to talk about DOGE, what they've been finding in Social Security. It's the year of the special election. Tomorrow is Wisconsin and also a major election down in Florida that could tip some of the scales on the Hill. Going to get Tom's take on that. And then we have Church Corner. Bishop Strickland came out with an open letter on the Israel-Hamas war that's going on. Really interesting stuff. So it's going to be a great show.
And before we get into all of that, of course, we got to talk about Real Estate for Life. So today's LOOPcast is sponsored in part by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life has 1,400 experienced faith-based agents throughout all North America and right in your local community. Chat with an expert that shares your values at realestateforlife.org. That is realestateforlife.org. Or you can call 877-LIFE-US1. That is 877-LIFE-US1. So if anyone's looking for a house, go check them out. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's show. We appreciate it. Okay, start to get into the fun stuff here, Tom. So Elon and co. did an interview with Bret Baier on Fox News. And to me, this kind of marks a notable change in strategy. I think before, as Erica was kind of saying, people were like, who are these 20-year-old savants, deciphering scrolls of Latin that now have information regarding my payments? That seems to be not the case. Maybe that led to a lot of these protests we're seeing, although I have my own suspicions on why those are existing. Yeah. But basically, it turns out a lot of them are really successful CEOs, COOs who have put their lives on hold to kind of take this opportunity to serve the country, it seems like, is what they're saying. Some of the very specific things that they've been finding have been fascinating, but just a few examples. We have Joe Gebbia, co-founder of Airbnb, Aram Mogadassi, software engineer, previously worked with Musk at XAI, Neuralink, Anthony Armstrong, former Morgan Stanley banker. So they kind of presented these men as front-facing now of what DOGE is doing. And here are a couple examples from this interview. It was fascinating because they have been a little bit cloak and dagger outside of Elon. And so here's some of the things that they've been finding.
For example, like the simple survey that was literally 10-question survey that you could do with SurveyMonkey, cost you about $10,000, was the government was being charged almost $1 billion for that.
For just the survey?
$1 billion for a simple online survey. Do you like the national park? And then there appeared to be no feedback loop for what would be done with that survey. So the survey would just go into nothing. It was like insane.
I took that survey. I just want.
Oh, you did?
I did. I remember. I was like, I love national parks. They're great. I'm so glad they're asking me.
Tom, you've been in DC for a while.
Is it possible? I think Erica, you owe us $100,000.
I think I do.
Tom, you've been in DC for a long time. Is it possible that there was a national park survey just asking whether or not you liked it that cost $1 billion and went nowhere?
$1 billion does sound, even for DC standards, outrageous, but you can't count anything out anymore. And this corruption has been able to last for so long that it's, for you and I, it might not be a surprise, except I'm glad they're starting to do more media, because we know USAID is bad, but all the outside regular people, all they hear is, oh, USAID, it cures AIDS in Africa and malaria, and et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. So I'm glad they realize there needs to be a PR offensive on top of this. Um, but it would be nice if they showed some receipts as well.
Yeah, you know what is genius about this is so quickly we got a well actually from Matthew Iglesias over at New York Times, which just was rich. But anyway, so he's like, no, actually, it wasn't $1 billion. The Interior Department oversees an in-house consulting group for federal agencies that has $830 million in total contracts, one of which is to design satisfaction surveys. I mean, he even drilled down in here. Specifically in social media posts this month, DOGE wrote that the Interior Department was dissolving its federal consulting group, a little-known directorate since 1987 that has provided and procured consulting, executive coaching, and survey services for other agencies. According to that post, the group had brokered a $75 million contract to design satisfaction surveys, and DOGE said it canceled $830 million in unsigned, quote, similar contracts to be awarded by the group. So the real gotcha here is that there was an internal agency within an agency that was doing $1 billion worth of surveys. Might not just been that one about the national parks.
Yeah, I mean, give or take 170 million, right? So, yeah, like you said, there is the piece where does Elon need to be more specific and more accurate when he's throwing these numbers around? Yes, like that kind of control would be good to see coming from him, but that does not excuse the fact that we had $870 million contracted out to these guys, and that I still don't know what the outcome of my survey was. I would like to know, what do people actually think about the national park? But again, like when the gotcha is like, well, actually the waste wasn't that bad, it's just not much of a gimme, right? Like this is still
That's
really
why
astonishingly awful.
Go ahead, Tom, before I say it.
That's why I kind of like it when Elon Musk throws out like
Me too.
the one-liner or something like that, because it not only exposes the wasteful spending, it exposes the media.
Mm.
100%.
That like, oh, it wasn't $1 billion, it was $999 million. Which is, it was Senator Dirksen, I think, like in the 1890s, when he was talking about federal spending, it was just like $1 million here, $1 million there. Soon enough, you're talking about real money.
We are talking about real money. I think
people react, exactly. We're talking about our money, and I think people react more to the $1 billion being wasted on SurveyMonkey. Back when I used to work for a fiscal organization, and we used to write about the bloat at the Pentagon all the time and all the wasteful spending. Nobody cared. What they cared about was we spent $1,000 on a hammer.
Right.
That's what they cared about. You got to find that thing that draws the people in.
Yep.
And let the media expose themselves then afterwards.
No, that's why I was going to instantly push back. And thank you, Tom, on what you said, Erica, because clearly Elon Musk, whether or not you like his antics or whatever, he's getting people's attention on all of this waste fraud. And then when people want to get into the detail games, it's just as bad. Mm-hmm. And their defense of it just reveals, as Tom said, what's going on. I mean, another thing that they brought up, for example, and the other thing about DOGE and receipts and things, they have a website, doge.gov, and they're basically saying they're working towards almost real-time examples of the cutting of the fraud. So it's like, how could they get any more accountable if they do get real time? But I discovered this through this interview. There's a mine in Pennsylvania.
That's great.
Where 700 plus mine workers operate 230 feet underground to process 10,000 applications per month in terms of retirement. The entire nation's retirement information is in this mine in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think we actually covered this when you were out on paternity leave, because it was so nuts when this came out. And it actually convinced one of the billionaires, I think the Airbnb guy, right? Joe Gebbia, he was like, getting the mine, like seeing the mine, picture of the mine where they're processing federal retirements was what convinced me to join DOGE, because it was so ridiculous. Yeah. And like you said, I totally see the strategy in putting out the crazier numbers and the claims that get people's attention, because another one where, people are like, oh, who cares about the trans comic book? Like that was only $15 million. No, you missed the point, right?
Or the trans mice. Remember they spent like a week of the news cycle being like, no, they're not actually transing mice. And then they're like, upon like cursory research, yeah, they actually
They were
were, and they're
transing
spending tons
mice.
of money on it.
Well, and then the argument becomes, oh, that's only 0.03% of the federal budget. And you're like, that's not the point.
Yeah, right.
The point is that we shouldn't be spending millions of dollars on this.
Oh
Yeah.
man, crazy times.
Come on, Doge. I like this rebranding. I do. I had fun with the like 22-year-old who had decrypted the scroll with the Latin. That was a really cool story that he was now working for the
Kid's a
government.
king.
But I think it is time for the rebranding, and it's time to say, no, we're serious about this. And Elon had said these sort of high profile men who were on the Bret Baier interview, he had been protecting them because he knew that the slings and arrows were coming for him, and he wanted them to be in the background. So the original intent was for them to be more cloak and dagger. But the time has come for them to put their faces out there and their names. It was a great interview to watch. Whoa.
And the deep state is also a dangerous place that they had to work, I think, under the cover of the night. I mean, I love that one. I think it was a Substack story about how the day after the election, the Treasury officials go into their office, and DOGE had already like uncovered all this wasteful spending all over the place, working overnight. They needed to do that because if you give the chance for the deep state to strike back, I'm telling you, they will strike back.
Yeah. I tremble for Elon. I really do. I think we're already seeing strikes at him where people trying to get him where it hurts with all the protests that you mentioned, Tom.
Yeah.
But then this weekend, he also came out and he actually said, we're finding senators who are making $200 million a year when their paycheck is $200,000. And he said, we're coming for you. We are coming for those senators. And I know.
Yeah, those guys have been doing pretty well. And I do want to get into the response because so clearly the reason for hiding these men was because, I mean, look what's going on at Tesla dealerships around the country. Yeah. Like there's organized action specifically to cause problems intentionally to sink its businesses, which is hilarious. The shift against Tesla after creating electric vehicles, which was the golden calf of the left up until 2 seconds ago. But just a few more. NIH had 70 different IT systems and they don't talk to each other. They had 27 chief intelligence officers over 70 different IT systems. It's like stuff you couldn't even, like I couldn't even make that up, like how dumb that is. And Tom, I mean, you know how this stuff gets funded, but I don't know how you could possibly do anything effectively with 70 different IT systems.
Led intelligence and they didn't know what to do with it. And I don't know how it gets funded. I mean, and even the bill, and we supported the CR because it's all part of a process, the continuing resolution. We need to readdress that in the future, and I know other members of Congress will, and that's why I wasn't upset when Thomas Massie was the lone Republican to vote against the continuing resolution, was because we keep on funding it. We keep on we're continuing the funding that we were doing 4 years ago, or there needs to be a DOGE of Congress. So if that really is Elon's next step, then I welcome it.
Is there a possibility for that? Seriously?
He would have to do it from the outside because there is a separation of powers.
Yeah, you can't have the executive branch doing that.
Right. So he would have to, and maybe that's what he's trying to do with his PAC or whatever, which would be wonderful for Catholic Vote to run. I think we'll find out where the bodies are buried and take out the primary any of the bad guys.
Hey, Catholics know where bodies are buried. It's kind of our thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so a few others to get through before we get to the protests. So the IRS had 1,400 people whose entire job is giving out a laptop and phone.
I believe this.
The credit card. So the federal government has 4.6 million credit cards given to employees. There are only 2.3 to 2.4 million federal employees.
That seems not good.
The youngest recipient of a small business loan was a 9-month-old baby.
We are pro-life, all right?
That's right.
That is one industrious baby.
Business for babies.
Seriously. We got a problem in this country.
Why weren't any of these grants going to unborn babies? That's what I want to ask.
Yeah. I think grind culture is getting out of control. We got 9-month-olds getting business loans, starting businesses, doing drop shipping. It's outrageous.
Who
I
says
think we,
Americans aren't hardworking?
yeah,
From the
take
cradle
that.
to the grave.
You had a recent baby, Tom. When
Yeah.
drop shipping, when it refers to a baby, what exactly does that mean? Is that something we can talk about on the podcast?
No, she she's very industrious, but she's yet to reach 9 months. So she's looking to set a record. Maybe she'll get it at 6. I don't know. But she's got big ideas. I can tell. She hasn't told me yet, but she's got big ideas. I see them in there.
Well, you got a podcast. I mean, you'll just blurt it to everybody.
True. I'll tell everyone when she tells me. But basically, they're saying that fraudsters will steal the social security number of a baby, take out a loan, and then leave them with a bad credit score because the systems don't talk to each other. And similar to the mine thing, like that mine thing was in the 50s, all of our technology largely doesn't talk to each other, and it's from the 50s. So I think it's time, guys. Elon Musk was saying is like, this is like a revolution. And sure that like you talked about me using hyperbole. That may be a hyperbole, but I don't know by how much. Like if we're able to actually effectively overhaul our government to the point where we can expect what we would expect from a standard private company, it would completely radical. I was just talking to someone this morning about Indiana. Indiana has a phenomenal BMV. So DMV, I grew up with the DMV in Michigan, which is still terrible, but the Indiana BMV is phenomenal. And it wasn't always this way. I talked to my coworker. She's like, it used to be terrible. Everyone used to hate it. Mitch Daniels came in, business guy, overhauled everything, cut a bunch of them, very like Elon Musk before Elon Musk. And now the BMV is great. And I look at that, I'm like, why doesn't every state have, it's betrayal on so many levels. Not only do I pay for this service to exist through my tax money, I'm paying for a service to be terrible and not serve me. It's like no one would ever do this ever with anything, but we've come to like have such low expectations of not just the federal government, of our state government. It's like, what if we actually got in there, shook things up, and solved it with some of the brightest minds that we have available in business? And there's people that look at that cynically, and I do think there should be a proper amount of skepticism. But to me, the media telling on themselves, or people that are on the gravy train telling on themselves for not being in favor of this kind of progress, or using sleight of hand by attacking Elon's eccentric character or whatever, to me, it's basically un-American, I think.
100%. 100%.
And frustrating.
We need a revolution. It's IRS season, right? Like it's on April's tomorrow. Everyone's doing taxes. And who doesn't think we need a revolution at the IRS? Like the fact that we as Americans have to figure out this Byzantine tax code and then figure out like what's gone wrong. And they're like, nope, you guessed wrong this year. Off you go. I mean, between us, my husband and I are like the brain trust of Connecticut. He has a freaking PhD in neuroscience, and it is still hours and hours of our lives because the IRS is like, it's all up to you guys. Figure out what we want this time.
Yeah, take a guess.
But the IRS now offers the service of doing your taxes for you.
Yeah,
so it's
right.
Like, trust us, we're from the government.
We're here to help.
No, I'd like to get a point where I could actually trust my government. So maybe this is a step in the right direction. But anyway, people have taken those and they've ran with it. So there's a global anti-Elon Musk protest. Basically, it happened on Saturday. And they were at Tesla showroom locations all over the world, not just the country, which is also kind of an interesting element to this. I guess people frustrated they got taken off the USAID gravy train, or they're frustrated about the tariffs. I don't know, but they're showing up. And they got swastikas, which is kind of hilarious. They're painting swastikas on cars. They got swastikas on signs. Some were very well attended in the hundreds of people. There were some that were hilariously small. I think there was one in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where like 3 people showed up, which was awesome. But anyway, this is going on. And I was taking a look into this of like who's behind this kind of global movement. And it's on kind of a like a simple website. We have sell your Teslas, dump your stock. And there is a map where you can see where all of these protests were taking place, hashtag Tesla takedown. And Action Network, I was looking into a little bit, has a history of being used by like left-wing organizations and causes. It has a function on there where you can basically self-set one up. So if I wanted to set one up in Indiana or whatever, I could go on and organize, and then it would be a part of this pin. So that's kind of the trick where they're like, no, this isn't paid for or whatever. This is all just individuals who just want to act. There definitely is some suspicion as to how organic these are. I share that suspicion. especially with, I think there's over 200 protests in the span of a week. And there are people that would certainly benefit from hurting competitor Elon Musk's business. But Elon had a good response, I think, to all of this. And it summed it up all well based on like him understanding what he would take on by taking this position. So looks like I'm getting an ad here. 1 second. I went straight to the Bret Baier interview. Here it is.
Country. You don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. You know, there's now been these many cases of violence and vandalism at Tesla dealerships. How does that affect your employees, your customers? What does it mean to you? Like, how have you taken that in?
Well, I think a great wrong is being done to the people of Tesla and to our customers. I mean, Tesla is a peaceful company that has made great cars, great products. That's all it's done. Hasn't harmed anyone. And yet people are committing violence. They're firebombing Tesla dealerships. They're shooting guns into stores. They're threatening people. They're issuing death threats against me and other Tesla personnel. What are they doing this for? Why? And what's happening, it seems to me, is they're being fed propaganda by the far left, and they believe it. It's really unfortunate. But the real problem is not the people. It's not like the crazy guy that firebombs a Tesla dealership. It's the people pushing the propaganda that caused that guy to do it. Those are the real villains here, and we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear we're going to go after them. The ones providing the money, the ones pushing the lies and propaganda, we're going after them.
Why do they hate the environment so much? Weren't we told like 10 years ago to buy Teslas because they're good for the environment?
I was told.
Apparently burning them is good for the environment. All the Tesla materials are rebuilding our ozone layer.
Yeah, suddenly the outrage has shifted, and the greatest threat facing America is no longer climate change. It's Elon Musk and the Tesla Corporation. And yeah, the whole thing, and as far as the Tesla takedown website, it's been pretty much demonstrated that's funded by Act Blue, which is also funding things like disruption and all these different. And it's go ahead.
Under investigation in about 13 states as well for accepting donations.
Act Blue is?
Yeah.
Wait, what are they specifically being investigated for?
It's most likely foreign donations, but they've there's a whole bunch of donations. They found that they trace it back to the person who supposedly gave it. The person's dead, or a 9-month-old baby, or something along those lines.
It seems to be a pattern here.
Yeah, there is a pattern emerging.
I think that.
Do we need DOGE for Act Blue?
Yeah, we do need DOGE for everything.
Well, there is investigations, including in Virginia, where you have a great Attorney General, Jason Myers. So hopefully their investigations will dig stuff up nationally.
Interesting.
Do it.
Very interesting. Speaking of, Erica, you had a video. So Elon headed over to Wisconsin.
He did, But before we get to why he was in Wisconsin, he did an event with another one of these, the DOGE billionaire investors, Antonio Gracias, and he came on stage. He was tasked by Elon to dig into Social Security, and you might remember we covered this 2 weeks ago. All of the propaganda from the mainstream media, from the left, was Elon's going to do away with Social Security. Trump's going to cut Social Security. So Elon gets on stage with Antonio Gracias, and I mean, they have found, and he went in to find fraud, because we know there are people who steal Social Security numbers and are, trying to get money that they don't deserve. They're not legal. So they're just digging around for this. And then they uncovered something really interesting, purely by accident, going on at Social Security. So can you roll that tape, Tom?
Yep.
When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants. Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister all born in Spain. I'm pro-legal immigration. This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America. And there are a lot of good people in the system that pointed this in this direction. I want to honor them right now, that work in the government today, who took risks to show us these numbers and tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
So I want to stop for a minute. I want to honor those people today. Very good people. Very good people.
You can stop it there.
I have been from DC.
Yeah, the entire presentation is definitely worth watching. So you can head over to the YouTube channel and get the link from there. If you don't watch us on YouTube, check us out live 11 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But for those of you who are listening, this is the chart is stunning. So at the beginning of the Biden administration, the first year, 270,000 non-citizens received Social Security numbers. At the same time, they were enrolled to vote in United States elections. That number increased exponentially through the Biden administration until last year it capped out at 2.1 million non-citizens got Social Security and the right to vote. So then they did some sampling of the group. That many from the group registered and actually voted. This just came out this weekend, so we don't have the hard numbers yet. But this was not only Social Security fraud and stealing from our grandmothers. This is also voter fraud on a massive scale. So these stunning revelations of what's going on in our institutions just continue.
Where do you even start for prosecuting?
I know.
So this is it's illegal to give an illegal immigrant a Social Security. Like, how does that even happen?
I mean, it would be very hard to prosecute and probably track down. A lot of these NGOs would probably be involved, explaining how to do this and everything else. I mean, you need to find a smoking gun, and one should certainly be searched for. But the first priority, I think, and they're doing it right, is getting these people off the rolls first.
Jeez.
100%.
I would not be surprised if getting some of these people off the rolls, and they're still in the United States, that many of them, because they might not understand that what they're doing is illegal. They're in the country illegal, but they might not understand what they're doing with the fake Social Security numbers is illegal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not fake. They would be real.
Try to apply.
Mm-hmm.
Were they fake or real Social Security numbers, or is that kind of?
Yeah, it's a good distinction. Yeah, they're good. They're real numbers, so they're not like duplicated, I believe. And again, this just came out over the weekend, so the reports are all over the place. But that they were illicitly given to people entering the country. That was my understanding. But yeah, we'll have to update everyone on that as this starts to untangle.
Yeah, if that's the case, I mean, you need to throw the whole Social Security administration into jail.
Yeah, non-citizens can legally obtain Social Security numbers through pathways like asylum claims or through work authorizations, often granting access to benefits like Medicaid. But that would not allow you to vote. You could vote. I guess you could vote, theoretically. It shouldn't count.
In some states, including, I think, California, if you showed up with a Social Security card, that would be admissible. I think it's true in Virginia, where I am.
That is crazy. Okay.
We'll keep you updated on that. I have no doubt there's more coming.
Go from here?
Yeah, right.
Right now, they're all voting in Wisconsin. So if you live in Wisconsin, you got to get out and vote.
Yeah, speaking of Wisconsin, so 2025 has become the year of the special election. Wisconsin voting begins tomorrow, the most high profile being the judicial race. Specifically, it's going to be the most expensive, I think, judicial race, one of the most expensive races in U.S. history, definitely judicial race. So spending has surpassed $81 million at this point. Projections are suggesting it could exceed $100 million by election day. I mean, that is a crazy amount of money. I think the previous record was like 51 in judicial rates. So it's doubling it, blowing it out of the water. And so, Tom, I want more clarity on this, but it's over this current 4-3 majority that liberals hold on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And so we get retiring Justice Ann Walsh Bradley being a part of this majority. And so it's between Brad Schmiel and Susan Crawford. Brad Schmiel is the conservative. Susan Crawford is the liberal. To me, this would determine many hot button issues, including abortion, but also redistricting, so it could make voting much more favorable to one party or the other. Why is this race so important? Why is Elon gone with the cheese head? Why is so much money being dumped in it? What's going on here?
It is. I think the redistricting is the biggest hot button one, because right now we have a Congress that, after the other special elections, which I know we're going to get to, there's only going to be like a 4 or 5 seat difference between the two parties. So, and we're kind of, because of redistricting, it's very hard to move those numbers a lot. If whichever party is not going to have a large majority. So you take away, I think Wisconsin has 2 or 3, maybe more Republican members, which they could do through redistricting if you have a pliant judge, which this judge will be, if the liberal wins. That's 3 seats forever gone from the Republican side. So it'll be harder and harder to get a majority ever again.
Yeah, and I think we saw last week how thin that majority is. I mean, we had Elise Stefanik was up to be UN ambassador for the Trump administration, and she withdrew her nomination, and she's going to keep her seat with New York. And again, because the razor thin advantage that we have right now with the GOP in the House, it wasn't worth risking.
Well,
that.
she would have won. That's my home district, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, they asked me to run, and my wife was like, "No, we're not moving, not to the Arctic Circle." But I mean, where Josh is currently right now, just over in Michigan. But she would have won. It is a reliable district. It's always kind of got squishy Republicans, including Elise Stefanik. I'm not her biggest fan. Hopefully she doesn't find out one of my sister-in-laws works for her. But
that'll make sure she doesn't find out.
A Republican would have won, but the Democrats changed the laws in New York State for special elections, and the Democratic governor said she would play politics with the special election to make sure that people in that district, I think it's the 22nd district now, would not be represented in Congress, and she would hold up any special election.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, and Chuck Schumer was like, "Oh, for anyone who voted for Trump, we're coming for you, and we're going to tell you better not vote Republican ever again." I mean,
there is an interesting problem, though, and I think people are saying this in Wisconsin. Also, some people are a little bit nervous about Florida, and I think we did just have a flip from Republican to Democrat in, was it Virginia or Pennsylvania? And in similar, like, for example, hometown, Victoria Spartz came and did a town hall in my hometown, and she was advised against it by the Republican Party, I think for good reason. My county is very squishy. Hamilton County is very like purple at best, and kind of has a reputation in Indiana, which is pretty solidly red. But anyway, she came back, and there was hundreds of people there meeting her with protest inside the building, screaming at her, honestly, like toddlers. I was kind of embarrassed as a Hoosier of like, we can't have a town hall without acting like children, like let her talk or ask her questions. It was kind of an embarrassing display, but I think largely demonstrating here, like there is an enthusiasm gap at this point. I think Republicans, like, not to say people are a huge fan of her around here, but Republicans as a whole don't have much reason to be riled up about anything. Like, it seems like we're kind of crushing. Like, Republicans have Trump in the White House. They're looking at national politics. Everything's being ripped up. It's awesome. People voted for this. We voted for change top to bottom, and we're getting it. And so now you see like 24/7 messaging pushed about Elon Musk and how he's an unelected bureaucrat, the oligarchy, and like all the animus and energy is on the other side right now. So I think with some of these elections, specifically in Wisconsin and maybe in Florida, we could have a turnout problem. And I think that's why we have been pushing so hard to be like, you need to get to the special election. There's just so many people that like, my life's pretty good, I'm not paying that close attention, don't understand what's at stake. And with the Supreme Court election in Wisconsin, that's 10 years that Supreme Court justice would sit for. That's 10 years potentially of huge problems in your home state with Wisconsin. Right. So I don't know the solution to this per se. I think that, Elon's trying his best and Trump's trying his best to get attention there, but I don't know. This could be a real problem thorn in the side for the next year, maybe 2 years.
That's why I don't know the solution about it. I'm usually one to reluctant to say don't do town halls, because it really is part of the democratic process. Not
Mhm.
written down, but it's part of being accessible. Maybe you need to start having like residency requirements or something if they're coming to
She
your
did.
town hall.
She did.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
And everyone should.
Um,
I think there were some paid protesters personally, but anyone that was let in the building had to give home address or whatever. There's a lot of liberals in Hamilton County.
One thing your senator did, Jim Banks, because those who aren't having town halls, the Democrats are coming into your town and having town halls without you. Um, so what he did, they were doing that. I can't remember where. It might have been in his hometown of Fort Wayne. So he had delivered like about 12 dozen of the local donut shop had delivered donuts to the thing, to the event, and made a film of it and kind of mocked the other side for their protests and all. Because ultimately, when they're calling up the offices, because I have a lot of friends who work up on Capitol Hill. When they're calling up, they need to or they are asking questions that they don't care about the answer. Um, they're saying save USAID. Well, do you know everything that USAID was doing? Well, no, you got to save USAID. Well, what about the trans comic books? And you got to save USAID. They are probably paid, or they're just like following a meme or something like that. So we need to find that solution, I think, to push back.
Yeah, with the town halls, even in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know what you're expecting with this. I know that she's a brawler, so credit to her. She stayed for 2 hours and just shouted right back. She was in a shouting match with like 300 Democrats from Indiana, and she just kept going. She went for 2 hours. She outlasted them. A lot of people just got up and left. But there was kind of the feeling in my head just watching it all go down was like, what's the point here? I do understand on principle you want to be able to be available and give updates to your constituents, but if you're just going to have people come scream at you, what are we getting out of this?
I mean,
also understand she's sorry.
No, you're fine.
She's a bit of an odd one as well. She voluntarily left all the committees she was assigned to when at the beginning of this Congress, um, saying like, "Oh, I don't trust the process," blah blah blah. So removing yourself from the process really doesn't solve anything. And what it does, it means she's useless. All she can do is vote on the floor. She doesn't vote in committee. She can't influence any of the legislation, even the Republicans are getting through. It was a very odd thing to do. It's something that happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene a few years ago, except she was kicked off by the Democrats and she turned it into a fundraising juggernaut. Victoria Spartz, I'm really not quite sure what her motivation is.
Yeah, me neither. Well, she wasn't going to run, and then she ran at the last second too. So, and she's got the name appeal. So I see maybe she was pushed to. I'm not. That's an odd one. So we'll see where all that goes. But into the
Indiana, what can you say?
you know how it goes. It's basically Parks and Rec. Okay. Church Corner, Erica, we got an open letter from Bishop Strickland.
Yeah, so Bishop Strickland came out with a letter about the war in Gaza. And I mean, we associate Bishop Strickland with sort of on the political end, like more MAGA Trump voters in general in the Catholic, in-church Catholic, blogosphere, whatever, what have you. And he wrote this letter, though, that I think probably surprising to a lot of people, talking to the Trump administration very directly about his concerns with how we are going about supporting Israel in the Middle East. And he writes
U.S. foreign policy.
U.S. foreign policy in general, right? And particularly using the Middle East and Yemen as the reason for writing the letter. And he writes, I'll quote a couple of passages. "As a shepherd of souls, I cannot remain silent while thousands suffer the consequences of escalating violence." He talks about the Catholic Church's teaching in the Catechism about just war. And he says, while a nation has a right to defend itself and protect its people, waging war must remain within the bounds of justice, proportionality, and moral law. And he's talking about in Gaza, the indiscriminate killing of civilians has reached an intolerable scale. The people of Palestine suffer immensely. Same issues applying to Yemen is what he's saying. And then just as sort of like his summation of what just war theory says to the situation, the principle of just war is clear. War must be a last resort, waged only in defense with proportional force, never targeting civilians. Today, as conflicts multiply across the Middle East, I fear we are seeing the truth that war creates more serious evils than it eliminates unfold before our eyes. So it's a very firm but gentle letter. Points to church teaching, talks about the real world implications of the United States continuing down the path that he perceives of disproportionate response at this point to October 7th.
And he did reference October 7th as
He did.
horrific evil, and that there needed to be a response of some kind. And so
Mhm.
in some ways, I think he thread the needle in a good way on this. And
Yeah.
maybe the reason that this stuck out to me was anytime there's an opportunity for a voice to temper some of the kind of rah urges of just like, we're excited, we're blowing people up, I
Mhm.
think is not only specifically Catholic in nature, but it's just good. I think it's just good for a country to have this kind of tempering.
Right. And I appreciate that, he did make that distinction between he really believes it is a just cause that Israel has, right? The invasion of October 7th and the massacre. But then he's saying we have to examine the means that we're using to wage that war, and particularly as Americans, our role in it as a matter of foreign policy. And I do think that the Trump administration, in terms of Catholic social teaching, has an openness to and a real sympathy for assessing the means that we use to do everything. And you see it on everything from economic policy to the way that foreign policy is being considered and debated within the Trump administration. And to me, I appreciate Bishop Strickland's, like you said, threading that needle and making this recommendation, because I think, unlike with the Biden administration, we are actually dealing with an administration that is open to having conversations about this. It's not what Josh would call the bloodthirsty neocons of the early 2000s. It's
Yeah.
not the Biden administration being run by a walking cadaver.
Asleep at the wheel.
There is
Yeah.
actually a possibility that we could be having these conversations. And I think Strickland picked up on that and is leaning into it as a shepherd.
Yeah. Tom, any thoughts?
I just wish that he still had a forum
I know.
where
Yeah.
stuff like this could get out more, or that more bishops would also reflect more and be more outspoken, such as he's been on a number
Yeah,
of the issues.
I'm surprised we haven't had. I know bishops have spoken out on the Gaza situation, but not in a way I think that, or speaking about Ukraine or immigration, I have yet to see someone, maybe with the exception of Burbage, he was great, speak in such a way that I feel like there could be a conversation. And like you said, I'm just sad Strickland doesn't really have a platform other than LifeSite News where this was posted.
From the United States, because the Patriarch of Jerusalem, Pizzaballa, has been doing a great job, and actually has personally put his life on the line.
Yeah,
but
thanks
I think
for that distinction. That's a good distinction.
Right. It means, and maybe you made that already, but I think it stuck out to me because he is an American bishop, and we
Strickland.
have more influence. Yeah, Strickland is, and he has more influence, hopefully, on what happens. He's been to Mar-a-Lago, and I think it's just a good to constantly kind of have the foot on the pedal there, because that to me is what people voted for, right? Americans voted to end these wars. Americans voted for peace through strength abroad, and not to be constantly fighting in forever wars, potentially sending our sons. I think it's important too. Like, Israel is our ally. That's our foreign policy. We've made that very clear. But Israel's only able to act the way that they do because the United States basically has a blank check policy with them and provides them with much of the ammunition and firepower that they currently have. So in some ways, I hold Israel to a higher standard because of that, because to me, it's an extension of American foreign policy. And so, like, and actually what was revealing with the text too, which we talked about, the whole signal thing, was one of them was, we're waiting until this leader goes in the building with his girlfriend before we strike it. And we just took out, how many handful of civilians in Yemen over getting this guy, in which maybe there wasn't a way to get him. But I would like to be seeing thought to, how do we limit as much civilian casualty as possible? And someone already brought up in the chat, like, Hamas uses people as human shields, which I'm like, yes, that's terrible. I hate that. I would love to see Hamas eradicated. And even there was an example of a young 22-year-old, Odai Nasir Saadi, who led a public protest against Hamas, which, for anyone curious about what this means, it means death. Like, he died. horrifically. He was tortured for hours and executed. He had to have known this was going to happen. The footage of these protests erupting were really crazy to see. And I think he had to have known that this was coming, and that what I see as such a form of bravery was, I'm probably going to die, but I don't even know if he's tapped in enough to do this. But to me, the biggest separator of support is seeing that tying Hamas support to the Palestinian cause, because I know that there's Palestinian Christians that want nothing to do with Hamas and that feel oppressed, but live there and have nowhere to go. They're not able to go. They're not able to leave. Even if there's potential agreements, they can't go anywhere, and they're being bombed out. And so he leads this protest to even just give a voice to the people that are like, we actually don't want Hamas here. I know I'm probably going to die. Hopefully that sends a powerful message to Israel and to the United States that we can work towards actual peace and solutions here for the Palestinian people and get rid of Hamas.
Yeah, I don't know if you can pull up any of that footage there from these protests, but what Tom's talking about these are actually Gazans inside Gaza right now, walking in the streets, and there's dozens and dozens of them. It started last week. It at least continued through the 27th. It's really hard to get this footage out of there, as you can imagine, because the infrastructure is so destroyed. You're not going to see this in the mainstream media, but we're actually at a point where Gazans are rising up and saying, Hamas are terrorists. You sold out Gaza. Get out, Hamas. And like you said, Tom, the leaders of these protests, they know that they now have a target on their backs. They know that this is essentially death, but they've reached the point where they're like, get Hamas out of here, and you get out of here. Hamas has announced they've also now executed 5 other protest leaders in a similar fashion to 22-year-old Adai. And I don't know if there's a connection with the Christians who remain, if any, are still alive in there. Most of the signs you'll see are in Arabic. Odai's family has vowed vengeance on Hamas, but even the astonishing thing about this is seeing any kind of public pushback against this terrorist organization, which was elected in Gaza by the people, and now they've reached this point of actually risking their lives to go out there and protest these terrorists. You see children in the crowd. It gives me hope for the region, but this is astonishing bravery from these people.
Yeah. And I don't know if Gaza Lago is the solution. Chalk that up to hyperbole, hopefully intended. And actually, to Trump's credit, that did get some investment from the region to potentially take care of what's going on there. So I don't even know what to do with that one. I didn't know where to categorize that one in my brain. But yeah.
Marco Rubio just has to say to the leaders of Hamas, we're willing to negotiate with you. Here's some beepers so we can contact you when we're about to negotiate, and then let Israel take over the rest.
I was a fan of the beeper thing because that was so targeted. You don't get more targeted than that, Pogo.
I pushed back on the beepers.
I know you did, but
because the beepers did kill civilians,
strikes.
Of course. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's a tough issue. It's a tough issue all around, and I don't think that college campuses should be held by terrorists over it. So especially terrorists that aren't even citizens. Anyway, we move on now. Twilight Zone. Tom McCluskey, you want to go first?
Sure. And I know, especially you, Tom, have been talking a lot about like Governor Newsom's podcast and everything, and how some on the right are coming on, or he's going on their podcast.
Twist my arm. I'll go on. I'll talk to Gavin.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
See, I'm more of anybody who I see with him, I instantly think now is a hack.
Never mind. I won't go. I'll stay home.
They're smart people. They have to know they're just being used. And now, unfortunately, Bill Maher is now going to be welcomed at the White House by Donald. Well, he's going to be at the White House. I did like Donald Trump's Truth Social post. It was more like, I don't know about this guy. I think he's a little crazy. I don't think he's ever going to be with us. He's fake, blah, blah, blah. And Bill Maher has said some horrible things, but the less rebrand is in full motion. And Maher's been their most stable guy, over the last 6 years, except it's all an act because he says the most horrible things. And he only attacks the left when he needs to be taken seriously by cheap dates on the right.
Oh,
so I'm just hoping.
Get him, Tom.
we do not credibly promote the left or anything like that. And way back when, I used to love like his old show, Politically Incorrect. But I think he has just drifted so far left, and every now and then he'll like stick his head up and go like, no, 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 I'm a libertarian. But no, he's not. And I hope the meeting goes horrible with Donald Trump.
Well, Tom, you didn't even tell the best part of it.
Oh, that Kid Rock was the one who
Yes, dude, he's bringing my hero.
initiated it.
Kid Rock is the matchmaker, bringing them
Hometown
together.
hero Kid Rock. Come on.
Oh, is he from Indiana?
No. From Michigan, outside Detroit.
When I was at the event, when I worked for an evangelical organization, we did a bus tour around the United States. The bus happened to be one of Kid Rock's buses. So imagine and we ended up down in Tampa for the Republican platform, and Kid Rock came over, and I can say it now because he's with God right now, but the bus driver, really great guy, Scott Wilson, had moonshine on the bus. So Kid Rock came over, and a couple of us, this is on an evangelical bus, drinking moonshine in the bus. And the next day, the head of the organization walks into the bus, and he sees like the leftover, it was a mason jar of moonshine. And the first thing he just goes is, McCluskey.
Not Kid Rock, McCluskey.
McCluskey drinking moonshine with the boys. Dude, I unironically, I've said it many times in this podcast, I love Kid Rock. I actually do. I love Kid Rock.
I can't name one of his songs, to be honest.
I could name you a couple, explicit, of course, maybe from my past, but you know what? No, I still listen to them sometimes because I love Kid Rock, because he channels that kind of like hillbilly energy that you just want, like middle finger to the man type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And his interviews are hilarious. Like anytime now he gets in front of a mic, hilarious. He was all in on Trump from the beginning. I love Kid Rock. And people are giving him a hard time because the Lions did some promo for Ford Field, and they had, Dan Campbell, the head coach. They had Eminem, and like everyone's like, yeah, Eminem. And then the camera panned to just Kid Rock, who's like genuinely a jump scare because he's a funny looking individual. Everyone's like, we don't claim him. I'm like, I claim Kid Rock. I love Kid Rock. I'll never apologize for him. He's the best.
Oh,
so
man.
the 5 fans of the Detroit Lions got upset.
No, the Lions have a huge fan base, many of which jumped on the bandwagon recently, which we welcome.
I'm married to one who's been a fan for decades.
Super Bowl incoming. Don't worry, Tom. It's all good. We're on the path. Trust the process. Tom, I know you got a hard out. If you ever got a hop, let me know. But Erica, I'll have you go next because mine is a little bit longer.
I got it. So Colorado, deep blue state, considered a little bit of a twin of Connecticut. So this was crazy. Colorado House Speaker Julie McCluskey, no relation to Cherry Blossom Tom, took to the floor to promote Senate Bill 25183. This is a new bill in Colorado which would require taxpayers to pay for abortions for women on state-sponsored health plans, specifically Medicaid. And this was not about equity. This was not about women's rights. They have a new reason why paying for abortions would be in the state's best interest. She said they had a study done. Colorado already reimburses abortion costs in the cases of rape, incest, and life endangerment. But those are only 1.2% of abortions in the state. We got to save more money, she says. The analysis projects that passing Medicaid-funded abortion would skyrocket abortions, or as she calls them, averted births, by 30%. And just for context there, I looked it up. In June 2024, Colorado reported 2,000 abortions. That seemed about average for over the last 18 months. So this would skyrocket that to about 2,600 abortions. And her new reason why they should pay for low-income women's abortions, not only would it support equity and fairness in healthcare, but aborting babies is good fiscal policy too.
What?
Can you roll the tape?
Wait. Wait.
You have to hear this.
She said that out loud?
Oh, yes. You need to play it.
Oh, my goodness.
Go for it.
That savings comes from the averted births that will not occur because abortions happened instead. So a birth is more expensive than an abortion. So the savings comes in Medicaid births that will not occur. This bill will actually decrease costs for our healthcare policy and financing department, our Medicaid expenditures in both this year and out year. out years as the savings from averted births outweigh the cost of covering reproductive health care for all Coloradans. This bill requires all abortion services to be state funded. The bill requires an increase to general fund of $1.5 million to cover the cost for care. But again, a reminder that ultimately the state will see a cost savings. And ultimately, it is truly an honor to be here carrying this bill alongside Rep. Garcia. And I ask for your support of Senate Bill 183.
I mean, I got your jaw to drop there, Pogo. I saw that. That was chilling.
One of the priorities on the federal level for Catholic vote right now is defunding Planned Parenthood, hopefully through the reconciliation bill as well as other places. One of our biggest roadblocks that we have to face is the Congressional Budget Office. This is Congress's own budget office that figures out how much things cost when you introduce bills, things like that. Says that having babies is more expensive than killing them. So defunding Planned Parenthood saves money in the first year, but then in out years, it says it costs more money because they automatically assume that baby is going to be getting government assistance, which this woman who's disgracing my name seems to have said as well. I mean, you can just tell by the way she spells it.
So there's two approaches we could take here, right? We could stop sending billion-dollar surveys out as to whether or not people like national parks to save some money, or we could just kill a bunch more babies is the other answer here.
That's
and
the proposal.
and how
what about the old people who are invalid and everything else?
well, right,
Why should we be spending money on that? It's the same argument.
Right.
It's the same argument as made in Canada, right? That they're having it's cheaper to have someone who's terminally ill kill themselves than to have the state have to pay for palliative care and end of life care and hospice.
Well, you know how short-sighted this all is too? Like
Right.
Isn't the big argument we don't have enough people to fill jobs in our country? So it's like, let's save money and kill Americans, future Americans that could turn into workers, productive members of society, serve their country, and simultaneously flood the country with immigrants from all over the world who we know nothing about and potentially have no desire to assimilate. Or even if they do, let's have them do servant level jobs like clean our toilets. It's like, it's all connected and it's disgusting. That's the argument being made simultaneously, is kill as many Americans as possible and import foreigners to do cheap jobs.
100%.
One argument we're not taking into consideration is, so a woman has a baby and then 9 months later it applies for a government grant and gets it. Just how much is that going to cost us if a whole bunch of 9-month-olds start applying for government grants?
Yeah, they haven't
I
even
don't
thought
mean to
of
make
that.
light of a very serious issue.
If we
But
were a proper
that is
country,
the
no
argument.
one would be in polite society that said something like that out loud, let alone in Congress, let alone trying to get that actually into law. Like that
Let
is, you
alone-
should be
yeah.
ostracized from polite society to say that we'd save money by killing more people's babies. And it'd actually be good for the state. Those people should be in jail in a just society.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's such
I'm a free speech absolutist. You can say it, but you should be nowhere near any levels of power.
100%. So Colorado, waking up, any Catholics out there?
Oh my gosh.
We gotta get
and
this
of course,
one out.
what's
I don't
Colorado?
know
What's
what it-
Denver? Sanctuary city too. Places flood and the huge homeless problems. They got flooded with illegal immigrants. It's like people are so
Elon Musk should
backwards.
start running ads in those districts saying, this is what your member said, your elected official said. Kill the
Truly
baby
crazy.
because it saves money.
Yep, that's our next ad. I mean, it's
How do people
absolutely.
get? It's crazy. People even get away with this. Okay, Tom. Understandably, I think we're at noon here. If you got to drop, let me know. But breaking news as of this morning. So Marine Le Pen, she's the leader of the National Rally Party in France. She has been banned for running for election for the next 5 years. Okay, so here's some headlines here. If you remember, J.D. Vance made a speech to the EU about the greatest problems facing them. And they were hoping to hear, Ukraine is the biggest problem facing the EU. And he told them, no, you are the greatest problem facing the EU. The elite's not listening to people. So Marine Le Pen's been barred for running for French presidency in 2027. 2027 is when the next election is going to happen. And for people wondering why this is significant, if you were to have this election today, she would win in an overwhelming, pretty close to overwhelming landslide, 36% support in the country. The closest to her is 25%. Now, if you're curious, what did she run on? Why is she considered so offensive to be put in jail? Here's a few examples that might sound familiar. Reducing legal and illegal immigration, advocated for ending birthright citizenship, restricting social benefits to French nationals, and prioritizing French citizens, for jobs and housing, a policy she framed as, quote, national preference. Think France first. She proposed withholding France's EU budget contributions, exiting the EU electricity market that mostly comes from Russia to begin with, which is hilarious, and reviewing free trade agreements to protect French interests. She also opposed further EU enlargement, particularly for Ukraine, and law and order. She needs to strengthen security, specifically because there's a lot of tension from widespread immigration. So I was trying to look into, like, what did she do to get this 5-year ban, 4 years in prison, 2 years in house arrest, 100,000 fine. So she's being charged with embezzlement was the exact charge. And I drilled down into that a little bit. Basically, the charge is that some of her aides in European Parliament also worked for the party. So that's the National Rally Party, and not just on parliamentary work. Common practice for a long time, and several other parties stand accused of doing the same, including Madem, it's a centrist party, and LFI, the biggest far left party. The, quote, embezzlement charge is the idea that if parliamentary aides do non-parliamentary work, their salary is being, quote, embezzled. Everyone can make up their mind as to what that means. So she's not even personally enriching herself through this. It reminds me a bit of something like if someone were to invent a novel financial crime to charge someone with by trumping up a misdemeanor into a felony, which would potentially come with jail time around a time an election is happening, in which people have majority for support for someone that also is running on getting immigration in control and putting their country first. And that one didn't turn out super well. It is shocking to see the guise of democracy kind of crumble between people's eyes. Not just shocking, but I think it's actually really, as JD Vance warned, probably the biggest problem, because when democracy is revealed to not actually be democracy, to be kind of a fake controlled democracy by the elites, specifically global elites, that want you to think like you have some input, but then actually say, no, we're going to jail who you'd want to vote for because you want to vote for the wrong reasons. People are going to choose an honest autocracy. Like, they're going to choose a strongman that is honest with people, and then democracy blows up because democracy wasn't real to begin with. And like, I'm looking at similar examples like Georgescu from Romania. You might remember in 2024, he ran super popular. He got really popular on TikTok, got really popular internationally because he ran on a very similar, like, Romania first populist platform. And, say what you want, whether you disagree with those ideas, fine. Whether you think it's dangerous, fine. But like, if you have a democracy and you promise the Romanian people the opportunity to choose their leader, when they chose their leader, in this case, Georgescu, the Constitutional Court, in a shocking, unprecedented move in post-communist history, said Russia was propping up TikTok or whatever. Therefore, we're going to annul these results and you can't run again. And we're going to do it again. And JD Vance said that. And there was the actually people that were like, well, actually, they didn't actually cancel their elections. And then, oh, no, they just annulled the results of the election. He was totally right again. So I'm not an expert in French parliamentary politics. I feel like this backfires. Like, there's no way now that this has reached global level, unless maybe France doesn't have the same revolutionary spirit. I say that with somewhat of a pun, but that America does. And maybe their politics operate differently. But like, it did not work here.
They have a revolutionary spirit.
I mean, I hope from your mouth to the croissant's ears. However, I mean, personally, I don't think there's been a good Frenchman since Lafayette. And the EU is destroying Europe, in a sense, looking to destroy the world. I mean, look what happened in Romania. Look what's happening in France. Look what happened in England. Even after England left, they're still being inundated and killed. It's killing Ireland. Ireland is barely even a Catholic country anymore. They're sending in like hundreds of immigrants into towns as small as 100 or 200 people. The EU was a bad idea. That's time has never come. And I wish Brexit happened. I wish Brexit was followed by Frexit. Irexit and Rexit and everything else.
Polexit.
Because I don't believe that the French, I believe they're in the frogs in the boiling pot. No pun intended, because I know the French like to eat frogs. And they're just going to shrug their shoulders and move on. And Macron is like a dollar store Napoleon, the person she was running against. I unfortunately think he gets reelected.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable.
Tell me more. Dollar store Napoleon. What do you mean by that?
He's thinks he's a dictator and he can't run against Le Pen. He can't win against her. So the EU is stepping in to make sure that he doesn't have to run against her. So maybe I'm giving him too much credit by calling him a Napoleon.
And
Yeah.
I was looking, is Macron term limited? Aren't there term limits in France?
That is a good question. I do not know the answer to that.
Do a quick Google on that, because I'm pretty sure he actually can't run for French president.
Well, so yeah, he can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms as president. They have the parliamentary system though, so who knows? But yeah, we should look into that. My hope is that this strike against Le Pen actually like invigorates something in the French people. And so, like you said, they do have a revolutionary spirit. It's a little more violent than the American revolutionary spirit. So like, I hope we don't go there. French Revolution was no cakewalk for Catholics. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I think my hope is that what we're seeing in Romania and what JD Vance is calling out, also one of the German one of the German EU representatives was saying that they might have to overturn their elections or cancel their elections. And this move in France, we hope that there are enough Europeans left who are going to react to this the way that Americans did in the 2024 election, and that they can wrest back some of this control of their country. I hope this is the last gasp of a dying post-war order. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I mean, you read Rick Rostow, that you can read Rusty Reno on this, and sort of their fears as to why, Europe might not react in the same way. But it'll be interesting to watch. This is deeply disturbing. Europe is really scary to me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope it doesn't turn violent. I'm not encouraging that, but it almost at this point is like, what do you expect? What do you expect at this point? Like in the UK and France, like they're banning ninja swords and flooding the country with people that are clearly dangerous Islamists or people that are not culture fits and that are causing huge tension, flooding them into areas that they can't actually sustain what's going on. And then if you want to say, as a Frenchman, as someone of French heritage and ethnicity, that you are not happy with what's going on in your country, if you express that online,
you're the problem.
You're in jail.
You're shut down.
You can't say that. You don't. And JD Vance was saying they don't have robust free speech protections. They don't. They protested, but they don't. They put people in jail over memes. And so it's like,
it's
you have
a pressure
no
cooker.
outlet. Exactly. You have no outlet for this frustration, especially if you're going to say that you're going to have a democratic election, but you can't elect the people that you actually want to elect because we deem them dangerous by trumping up some novel financial crime that, like, if you look into, I think they were saying that there was a French politician that negotiated a deal, like $1 billion deal over text, and they still haven't been able to investigate her properly. So it's like reaching real banana republic.
This is Trumpian level prosecution. Yeah, Trumpian level.
I'm trying to think, like, if Democrats would have succeeded and they would have won that election, Donald Trump would be in jail right now. I have no doubt in my mind that he would be in jail right now. All his companies would be punished.
There's a reason they moved the sentencing to after the election, right? They
totally.
It would have been a very different sentence.
They were hoping they won, and Elon Musk would be punished too. All his government contracts would be gone. All his businesses would be IRS audited. Like he was even saying with DOGE, he's noticed a lot of they're digging into the IRS in why they target specific people, and of course, it's ideological motivated. So, yeah, I don't see this ending super well.
No, and here's the other reason I don't see why it scares me is because the reality is that Europe, there are still very good people there, but just in terms of raw numbers, it is a post-Christian society. So not even talking about, oh, there's more Muslims there now and there's extremist Muslim factions, but we're talking about countries where the Catholic Church, and not even to speak about the Church of England, it has lacked a muscular Christianity for so long now, and it was so decimated by the world wars, by the rise of communism, by the devastations of the sexual revolution, that resistance in a Christian order may have had to be hardcore and hardline, but resistance in a non-Christian order, I think, will devolve into violence. And it already has. I think it already has devolved into violence. We have instances in the UK of riots, right, against Islamic settlements, for lack of a better word, and apartment buildings, because people snap. And when the God of Jesus Christ is not the guiding star for that, there is only the strong gods of the ancient world left. And that is very frightening to me.
Yeah. And it's like, well, people are getting stabbed. It's like, let's just ban kitchen knives. Well, I would not like to live in a country.
No, not kitchen knives, samurai swords. We're just going to.
Well, no. I don't know if you saw, there was a clip from.
Was there
it was Idris
kitchen
Elba.
knife ban?
Idris Elba was like, we have all these problems in the UK with stabbings, and it's terrible. I think we need to get a little bit more creative and potentially like alter our kitchen knives so that they're not, as dangerous or whatever. It's like, I don't want to live in a country.
Knives? Is that what's next? I mean,
never give up your Second Amendment right, America. I'm making a desperate plea. Do not ever give up your Second Amendment right, because then all of a sudden you might not be able to use kitchen knives in your kitchen, in your own home country. Crazy. So I hope they figure it out. We'll see on the updates on that. Tom dipped out, but really appreciate him today. Erica, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
As always, and pray for Josh. Hopefully he gets some power back real soon and he can come back. He usually comes back turbocharged for the episode he's out on, with like 2 episodes worth of energy and rants.
Well, and I did want to make a note. We had a couple of people in the chat asking about what happened in Kansas. We're going to save it for when Josh is back, and we will let you know how it all went down with Catholic Vote. I'm actually talking to Logan Church and Tommy Valentine in a couple of hours, and I'm going to get all of the on-the-ground stuff about the Kansas efforts, the Black Mass that did not happen, and we will update you on that for sure.
Good. Okay, so we'll update you then. If you want to help us out and you're listening specifically on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave us a review there. Appreciate that. Spotify, you can do that. Subscribe here on YouTube. It's the best place. Come hang out 11 a.m. Eastern with us. If you want to support the show, go check out Champions Club. It's the best way to support us. Thank you to all of our champions that currently support us through that. Can't do it without you. And check out our sponsor today, Real Estate for Life. If you're looking to get it home, thank you to Real Estate for Life. Pray for us, of course. St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, St. Fidelis. Pray for us. Great episode, guys. We'll see you ready to rock on Wednesday with Josh Mercer, hopefully.